I just learned that when you have the courage to share your most authentic, true stories and then learn how to connect them to lessons that help other people, it's not just about inspiring others. You can actually make significant change in the world, both for nonprofits and for business.
Hey, 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 everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited you are joining us today because we have an incredible guest joining us, Heather Sager. Welcome to the podcast. How are
Hi, Becky.
you?
I am great. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this conversation. And okay, Heather, so you are a speaking coach for business owners. So being here on the podcast speaking, this is 100% your jam. And we're just going to jump right in with some rapid fire questions. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready. And as I told you before we hit record, I'm already sweating because rapid fire. Oh, let's do it. Like,
Okay, let's do it. Okay, number one, what is your most favorite stage that you have spoken on? I don't
this is
think I
gonna
can answer this question myself, but
this
I'm going to make it
I
hard
couldn't
for you.
answer this question, but I will just say the most recent stage that I've spoken on was actually the stage of a 10-year-old soccer field where I had the chance to coach my 10-year-old boys soccer team. They named themselves 6'7", but I got to do a little bit of speaking at it. I had to teach them about soccer and about mindset. And so soccer field was my most recent stage, which was so fun.
I love that. The soccer stage can be the stage. I love it. The soccer field can be the stage. So fun. Okay, introvert, extrovert, somewhere in between.
I'm an omnivore, so I'm right in the middle of the
Okay.
line. I tend to go more introverted. Most people think I'm extroverted, but I tend to lean a little bit more introverted.
Okay. All right. Got it. Got it. And do you have a go-to song that maybe you use before speaking that pumps you up?
Anytime anybody asks me for what my walkout song is, I panic
Yes.
because I like lots of music. So I have a
Same.
playlist that I do, but if I had to choose a song right now, it would definitely be Golden from the K-pop movie because it annoys my 10-year-old so much. And I just
It
love it.
annoys your 10-year-old.
Oh yeah,
Oh my
the
gosh.
10-year-old boy has no interest in that movie, but that
Yeah.
movie, that song is my jam. That's my pump up right now.
That is super funny. Okay, so side note, I think you know this, but I also have a 10-year-old boy, and his Halloween costume with his bestie is 6'7". So we're right there in the same wavelength. And my older daughter actually really likes that movie and has watched it a couple times. And he also kind of rolls his eyes. And I told him that on Halloween, everyone is going to be dressed up as that. And he's like, ugh.
That's very 10-year-old boy. Very
Very
much.
10-year-old boy, very on brand. All right. In all seriousness, Heather, you have spoken on over 1,500 stages, which is just wild and crazy to me. Take us back to the beginning. Like, what does your business journey look like to become now a speaking coach?
Yeah. So first off, when I think speaking coach, like most people come to mind, they think of those big stages. And we'll just like
Yeah.
redefine that for a second. I meant
Perfect.
stage as a soccer field. A stage is simply a platform to share your message. So when I say I've been speaking on 1,500 stages, this is like 1,500 presentations. They
Got
have
it.
been
Okay.
on Zoom calls. It could have been on physical stages. It could be masterminds at an Airbnb. Like a stage is just an opportunity for you to share your message through some kind of talk. And so I've done it a lot, but I don't have the traditional story of most quote unquote speaker coaches who had a professional speaking business. Mine actually started in the nonprofit world. So
Okay.
I won't go into the full whole story because that would be the entire interview. So when I was in high school, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was like my freshman year. She was diagnosed. We then really got into a lot of fundraising causes for breast cancer awareness. And I
Yeah.
know it's the end of the month, but at the time of this recording, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So
Yeah.
special, near and dear to my heart. But we started getting a lot involved in charities. And what I started noticing with charities, you have to be able to fundraise, which means you have to actually talk about the charity and the why and persuade people to join. But fast forward, my mom was diagnosed, her cancer had metastasized to her liver my senior year in high school, and it was terminal. I had to do what was called a senior project, which is this whole like project we had to work on all year, write a big paper, and then do a presentation on it. And I did it on breast cancer and just the struggles with breast cancer, what families experience, I was trying to bring more awareness to it. And I remember my teacher at the time looks at me and says, I think you should choose another topic. Because he knew my mom's cancer was terminal and he saw ahead on the schedule that knowing that this 17-year-old girl would be standing in front of an audience talking about her mom who would have had died at that point. And I
Mhm.
remember looking at him thinking like, I don't really care how hard it's going to be. I just know I need to do it. So I
Yeah.
did my senior project on it. We ended up launching a nonprofit foundation in honor of my mom. It was her last Christmas present. And she passed away that year right before her 50th birthday. But fast forward to, I had to stand up in front of my class and do this presentation around breast cancer when my mom wasn't with me anymore. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was the most rewarding. And in that moment, I learned, I mean, quite a few things, as you can imagine, being a kid. But I learned that sometimes we have to speak up, and there's a bigger reason for why we do it. And there's also something that really happens that's beautiful when you share some of the hardest parts about yourself with an audience. There's a rallying that happens, and it has a ripple effect that you could never imagine. So I got my start to speaking by sharing my mom's story and carrying our nonprofit forward. But then that transcended over when I worked in corporate and worked in business. I just learned that when you have the courage to share your most authentic, true stories and then learn how to connect them to lessons that help other people, it's not just about inspiring others. You can actually make significant change in the world, both for nonprofits and for business.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh, what a story. I have goosebumps. I don't think that I didn't know that was coming, Heather. Now I'm like, oh gosh. But I
Bam,
think
mic
that's so
drop.
powerful. Like case in point, right there, right? I'm sure our listeners are like, oh my gosh, like connected, right? So I think when we're thinking about speaking in business, I think you're absolutely right. A lot of times we're just thinking about that ballroom stage or having the spotlight on us or, you know, being in the presence of a large audience in a room in person. But I love that you're kind of redefining what that looks like. And I think, especially for direct sellers, maybe they're not, maybe they're speaking at a company conference or they have an opportunity here and there to do kind of a leadership talk in front of a larger group. But what does that look like beyond just the big stage? You know, what are some ways that we can think differently about our message and speaking and really, really connecting with our audience as you've already done here in the first couple minutes of this episode?
Yeah. I think for me, it really redefined. I started my business a year before the pandemic, and I was so grateful that I did not start in April of 2020. It was April 2019, because when I started, it was okay, I'm going to help people do what I've done, which at that point I had been speaking on stages for 15 years in a
Yeah.
professional capacity inside of a business. So I'm like, I'm going to teach other people to do it. But when the pandemic happened and I looked around and I said, wait a minute, all the stages in the world are closed, but I saw more voices being heard than ever. That was my moment where I'm like, we really have to redefine what this looks like, because the skills that you use to connect with an audience on the stage, the presence that you have to stand in front of an audience of 50 or 5,000, those
Mhm.
can really transcend over on camera. Now, I'm going to just a little caveat on this. I'll just tell you hands down, I could speak on stage in front of 5,000 people and be totally fine. But at that point in time, if you put the video camera on me, I would turn into like a total fuddy-duddy. Like that's the only word I can come up with
Fuddy
without saying,
duddy.
yeah, like I would be like, what's wrong with me? I am incompetent. I can't get out words. So just
Yeah.
know that even though that say a stage is simply a platform to share your message, there is a huge nuance that speaking on camera for many people, even if they're totally confident having in-person conversations or speaking on large stages, it can feel really difficult. It
Yes.
also can feel very intimate and vulnerable, and we get really judgy about ourselves. So I know we'll probably talk about a lot of these things today, but just know like you have access to thousands, millions of people potentially online, right? We're sold this promise that get on social media, you can connect with all these people, and you can. But if you're not able to actually truly connect, right? Sound
Mhm.
like a normal human being, not be awkward and nervous, and actually have something to talk about that people care about too. Like if you can't do that, well, then you're just another face online that people are scrolling past. But if you can really learn how to treat that camera as a stage and therefore think about yourself as a public speaker and then work on public speaking so that you can get better and tell better stories and better connect. Oh my gosh, your ability to reach more people, connect more people, help more people and then ultimately result in sales and progress and brand recognition. Oh, it's just like this beautiful ripple effect that happens.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I'm the opposite. I was like, I'm just going to speak online on cameras all the time. Like, why would I ever leave my house? And then as my business grew, people were like, hey, well, can you come speak at our conference? And I was like, I don't really want to do that. Maybe we do a virtual thing. And it just kept coming up over and over and over,
Yeah.
where all of a sudden I was like, okay, now I am speaking in big rooms of people. And that is not what I intended. And I feel like on the flip side, that made me way more nervous initially. Now I'm like, okay, I got this. But in the beginning, I'm like, what? Like real people in a room? I have to have like stage presence and
Yeah.
move around and deal with like a special Britney microphone in my mouth. Like, it felt so daunting being the other way around, where
Yeah.
I was so used to being on camera online and then moving to a real stage. I was like, ugh.
It's terrifying. Well, and the big old question of what do you do from the waist down, right? We don't even think
Yeah,
about that when we're speaking on
right.
Zoom or on video, right? We're never looked at that. One, you have to wear shoes, right?
Oh
Or
my
like
gosh.
real pants with a waistband. But then also, how do you actually walk and move? So
Yeah.
it's fascinating to look at because, side note, I was just on a client call. It's a new
Mm,
client that I have. He's a CEO of a really successful agency business, and he's looking to do more videos online and in-person speaking. And he had never worked with a coach before. He's never really done a lot of public speaking, but he's really good at sales. And so the
okay.
beautiful thing that we've been talking about in our conversations is look, when it comes to being a really good speaker, it's not learning how to technically get all these things right, right?
Mm,
Like how to write a really good hook, how to move your hands, how to make better eye contact, how to
yeah.
structure a story. Like all these things are great, and I teach all of them. But what's most important is for you to have the awareness to say, what are my natural strengths for how I already communicate well? Like when you're in your best, when you're jamming with your girlfriends around the table, or you're doing
Yeah.
like, I don't know, one of those cheese board nights where everybody brings the different boards, like the candy board, the cheese board, the
Yes.
pizza board, and you're
Love
talking
that.
with your girlfriends, or you're talking with your team. Right. When
Right.
you're at your best talking naturally and you don't even think twice around how you're communicating, how do we
Mhm.
look at that and say, ooh, what's the best version of you? And how do we translate that for the kind of stage that you want to speak on? And I think if
Mhm.
more people looked at speaking that way of how do we translate the skills we already have and then amplify them on bigger stages, and then, of course, learn the technicalities to make you more effective and better, I think we would all be showing up online a lot better right now. So just want to start
Yeah.
with that gift of you're already probably better than you think you are. You, if you're like me and you were really struggling with the camera, don't worry, you can get better.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said there just around like showing up as your best self and in a natural conversation, just like if you're hanging out with your friends and having a happy hour and your things are just kind of flowing. How do you take that and replicate that so it doesn't feel like forced and awkward? And I
Totally.
think sometimes when we do turn the camera on or we do step on the stage, all of a sudden we get kind of weird.
We
Right?
totally get
So
weird. We get
how
weird.
do how do we channel that to be less weird? So that brings me to the next question. Like, what are some of those most common mistakes that you see people make, whether they're speaking on a stage, in a room, or online? And are there maybe some small tweaks that we can make to be more confident as we're moving through speaking to others?
Yeah, since we were just talking about it, I want to bring this one up. I think is the biggest one that I see a lot, and that is where people are doing something that I call the parrot effect. And that's where when you're consuming a lot of information online, the example I always used, I started my business back in 2018, so I call it the era of Amy Porterfield, which I love Amy, right? She's like the goat of online marketing,
Yeah.
where everybody listened to Amy or Jenna Kutcher's podcast, and especially
Yep.
in 2019, 2020. Those were the
Yeah.
two voices. And what you'd start hearing is other people became parrots and like squawk, squawk, Polly want a cracker, that kind of parrot,
Hmm.
right? Where the
Hmm.
parrot repeats. And what would happen is you would hear people say things like, if you're multitasking, come back to me. Are you familiar with that line? Amy Porterfield
Uh-huh.
says that all the time in
Uh-huh.
her content. There's a couple other lines that she says a lot, and you'd start hearing it on other podcasts. And there's no slight against like using other people's verbiage. But what
Yeah.
happened is this parrot effect, which is the you decide, oh, I want to do what they're doing. And you start following mentors that you love. Brennan Burchard, maybe you follow Rachel Rogers, you listen to Jesse Itzler, like whoever is your person that you listen to. And we can't help it. We start adopting their language. It's like when you were little and you try on your mom's shoes or her pearls or her dress and walk around the house and play dress up. This is a lot of what personal brands do is they start trying on clothes around, ooh, is this my personality? Ooh, does this fit like me? Ooh, she had great lighting. Ooh, she had a bookcase behind her, color coded. I did that for a while too because I saw stuff
Get the
at
color coded
school,
books.
right? So it's
Yeah.
all these things, right? And by the way, my bookcase is mildly color coded behind me,
Mine is too upstairs.
right?
I'm feeling
But you see
seen.
what I'm saying? We start adopting these things from other people.
Sure.
What happens is with our voice, we then start sounding like a patchwork quilt of other people. And we start hiding how we would naturally say it because we've never even asked, how would I say it if I was saying it just like me versus trying to be like that polished, successful person that I follow? So, the number one mistake that I like to shake out of people is getting
Yeah.
clear with who are you when you're at your best, which sounds super lame, right? But it's something like one thing people always say when we're working on their presentations. They're like, I want to be funny. And I'll ask, but are you
Are you
funny?
funny?
Right. And like they'll actually stop. And I'm like, if you can't answer that question, then you are not putting jokes in your talk because that's not going to work. For me, I'm a funny person, but I'm not like, I can't repeat jokes. I forget the punchlines, but I will throw out random, like one
Yeah.
off things. I'm funny.
It
Right.
just
But
flows. Yeah.
so we have to know ourselves. Who are you when you're at your best? Are you funny? Are you relatable? Are you a storyteller? Are you better at remembering random facts? Are you a
Mhm.
fast talker? Are you a slow talker? Are you a like calm and cool like Obama? Or are you like super intense and speedy with your voice? Like you have to think about who are you when you're
Yeah.
natural? You have to be natural first and foremost. So watch it if you're parroting other people or trying to
Mhm.
present yourself like other people, that's never going to work in the long run.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of like take this to the maybe 2025 level, I think you're right. There's like a lot of parroting and things like that that have been happening. But now AI enters the scene. And I mean, I'll even do this sometimes where I'll script out my notes and leverage some ChatGPT in there. But you also see people that are scripting things so much or using catchphrases or wording that you're like, don't sound like them at all.
Let's
So,
be real.
yeah. So are you seeing that kind of creeping in where somebody's like, I got to do a talk. Now I'm going to, outline this whole thing and have ChatGPT write it for me, which I think takes us even further away from who are you when you're at your best.
I have so many heated thoughts on this. I have a
Yeah.
whole podcast episode rant that I did around why ChatGPT is making you stupid. And
Yeah.
stupid doesn't build authority, and you need authority to be a thought leader. So
Right.
we can rant on this.
Yeah.
A couple things. I think AI is amazing. I think AI is amazing because it's saving us time in a lot of different ways, but there is a big fat caveat. There's something that I deem as creative atrophy. And
Mhm.
it's something that's happening right now in this whole, I would say, thought leadership space. I think a thought leader is someone who has their own ideas, brings them out to the world, and other people look to them as someone to listen to, right? And right now, we need more leaders than ever because so many people are just parroting and repeating other people's ideas.
Mhm.
People getting burned out pretty quickly. So we want to resonate. You have to have unique ideas of your own perspective on the world. But what's happening, I don't know if this is ever, if you've experienced this, but what I see a lot with my clients, and I even had this happen when I came back from maternity leave here in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I would go to record a video and I would have a plan of what I wanted to say, but then I would start talking and it wouldn't make any sense and I couldn't even get to my point. And I'm like, hold on, what is happening right now? And then I get so frustrated. And then I never actually finished the video, or if I did, I never posted it. Right? Is that
Mhm.
probably a very normal thing? What
Yeah.
happened is this started happening more and more and more. And for me, it was on the coattails of my maternity leave. So
Okay.
I was like, well, I don't have time for this. I got a little baby to take care of. I got two
Yeah.
other kids. Like, there's just too much happening. So I
Yeah.
started leaning on ChatGPT to help me with ideas, to help me formulate my thoughts. But what was fascinating to me is once I tried to get on camera or let's say write an email and I would
Yeah.
sit down to try to do it, I found myself, regardless of whether or not I had the idea, the execution was still truncated. It was still clunky. It wasn't coming out right. It didn't sound like me. I was
Yeah.
having a really hard time recording as I didn't used to. And what I realized is what was happening is our brains and our creativity is like a muscle. So similar to if you take a lot of time off at the gym and then you head back, you know how you're really freaking sore for the
Yeah.
few days after and the few weeks after? Well, specifically our brain to our articulation through our mouth, it is like a muscle. And if you're not exercising your creative, like, oh, what kind of ideas? How do I think about this? How would I phrase it? How would I structure it? If you're not really challenging your own brain without an AI tool, your brain, that muscle of creativity, is starting to experience atrophy, which means it's starting to deteriorate and get weaker, which means if you go to try to use it, it's gonna feel harder. And if you're having a
Yeah.
hard time coming up with a brilliant idea, you sure as heck aren't gonna deliver that brilliant idea in a compelling way on video or on any kind of stage. So, my big caution to anyone, this is probably the hottest mistake in 2025 right now, is people are farming out their creative ideas or the structuring of those ideas to AI. And if you're doing that, you are robbing yourself of the strength and power that comes from having confidence in your own message. So I know it's hard and I know it's annoying, but the absolute best investment that you can make into your business in 2025 is to get better at articulating your ideas. Those are the people who are going to shine and come out ahead at the end of this year.
Oh, so good, Heather. Okay, this is so, so good. I want to go deeper at this because I think that this is super, super helpful. I mean, I got episodes all about AI. I see people using AI. I'm using AI. So let's like back it out, right? Because we know AI is a tool. It's there for us. It can definitely help us. It's great at writing my show notes for the podcast. It's great at,
Yeah.
summarizing a conversation for me so I'm not having to go back and re-listen to something. But as we're thinking about speaking, whether that's showing up online, showing up in person, and preparing that message. So the process of creating the ideas, the creative process, the thought leadership part, and then structuring those ideas to get ready to speak. If we're turning ChatGPT off for a minute or Claude or whatever we're using, closing that window and really using our own brain. What is your recommendation on kind of the best process? Because I've done all kinds of things. I've done like notebooks full of notes. I've done outline on a post-it note. I've done bullets. What do you recommend to your clients that are preparing to share something, even if it's short, like a 5 minute, a 10 minute, quick little something that they're sharing online? What is the best process to kind of create and
Yeah.
prep without AI?
Yeah. Okay. So this, like, when I started teaching this, AI was not a thing, right? And
Yeah,
I
you're like,
resisted
I'm
it for
going
a long
back to
time.
the
So this is
basics
like
here.
great. Like,
Yeah.
side note, this is why when I talk about I teach business owners how to speak, what we're talking about here is the fundamental reason why I work with business owners. So with business owners, it's not just about making it on stage and delivering a talk. The stage or the video, it's just a pit stop. It's not the destination. So with professional speakers, their whole business model is like, how do I make that moment on stage be the product, be the deliverable? And there's a whole series of skills needed for that. But when you're a business owner, you have to like not only give a talk, but then you have to talk to people after and then potentially create
Yeah.
more business off of that. Or then you turn around and you have to lead a team meeting. And then you turn around and then you have a sales call. And then you turn around and you have to create content. And you're using
Yeah.
your voice all the freaking time. So, what
Mhm.
I like to focus on with business owners is how do we help you do like a workout routine of using your voice so that whenever and wherever you have to speak, you know that you're going to be on brand, you're going to be on point, and that you're going to feel really confident and you're not going to spend all your time second guessing, oh my gosh, what did I say? Or stressing out about what am I going to say? You need to be able to be present in the moment. So, back when I started my business, I laid out and said, all right, what's been the thing that's helped me be successful speaking on all these stages, right? I ran a training center in Scottsdale. So we were hosting training sessions on the daily. I was hosting virtual sessions. We had online courses. Like there was a lot going on and my schedule was back to back all the time. So the question I asked myself is what allows me to be successful even when I'm quote unquote walking into a room and winging it? Spoiler, I
Mhm.
was never winging it. It was all about the process. So I came up with what I now call the magnetic talk formula, which is
Okay.
it's so simple and stupid, but it's really, it always comes back to these four things. So I'll give you the four and then we can talk about it wherever you want to go. Number one, strategy, right? You have to know that you have to be able to answer the question, what is my goal for this specific talk? What am I trying to do here? And if you can't answer that question, why the heck are you talking? Right? You have to really think about what's the goal here. And there are five different objectives for business owners when it comes to speaking. We can dig into those. Only one of them is actually generating sales. So we have to
Okay.
think about what is the actual goal. And
Yeah.
that goal informs what I call a sticky message. which is
Mhm.
one main idea. Spoiler, going
Mhm.
back to the mistakes we talked about, people try to cram way too many things into a talk. And then when you ask them, well, what do you try to take away? They'll have like a list of things they hope the audience learns.
Yeah.
Choose
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Choose one. It's going to be the most annoying thing that you ever do, but one main thing. I just poked myself in my eye because I just got too excited with my hands. So one main takeaway, right? So
Yes.
strategy. What's the
Okay.
goal? What's the point? What's the goal? What's the point? That's the first area we have to focus on. Number two is structure. You have to learn how to structure a message. If you just ramble and hope you get to a point, you're going to rely on the audience just kind of taking away whatever they want to take away versus what you want them to take away. So you
Mhm.
have to put some structure around it. You asked the question, so I'll go ahead and tell you. The structure of a really good presentation, video, or talk, it is not rocket science. You open it, at the end, you close it, and in the middle, you do the why, what, and the how. Open,
Mhm. Mhm.
close, why, what, how.
Why, what,
It is
how?
the
Love that.
easy, simplest formula. The why is why people should care. The what is what the heck are you actually talking about? What does it look like? And the how should be very, very little, but to give them a picture of how they can be successful.
Love that.
That's the
Love that.
formula, right? And within it, of course, there's a lot more nuance and details, but you need to know how to structure your message. Okay. So, one strategy, two, structure. Number three, you have to learn how to tell good stories. If you cannot
Mhm.
tell a story in 2025, side note, we know when ChatGPT tells your stories because it's not an actual story, it's just a lot of information. Your story is how you connect and differentiate yourself. So get better at telling stories. In fact, I've already told you many of them today, right? Go
Yeah.
back to the top of the interview. You heard a couple stories right there. Like
Right.
stories is how you connect. It's how you get people to be like, oh, that wasn't what I thought this was going to be. It's how you,
Yeah.
and in fact, I'll give you an example here. My client, Melissa, she was in network marketing. She hired me back in 2019 to help her. She was opening up, she was one of the lead speakers, right? She's
Okay.
top rep in her
Yeah.
network marketing business, but she was on one of the stages delivering a keynote. She'd never done it before in her life. And she's like, oh my God. So she was actually talking about Enneagram was her message that she was going to share on this big stage. And I remember when we were first meeting and we were going through her talk, we had all these different ideas around the tangible takeaways she wanted to do. And what we started with was a story about her buying a romper off Instagram. And it was this hilarious story. I call it a sparkly story. You start with something seemingly unrelatable when you're on a
Yeah.
stage. And we talked about the story of her buying this romper on Instagram. And essentially, it turned out she put it on. The model was like 6 foot and she's like 5 foot nothing. And it looked like she was a toddler with a soggy, wet diaper. And so she starts this whole keynote at the hugest conference of the year talking about her soggy, wet diaper romper. And the audience is laughing. She's relatable. They love her. But then she circles it around to the point around sometimes what you see out in the world is not the right fit for you. And that's the power of story, right? You tell a really good story, which is so meta because I just told you a really good story and now I'm making a point of the story, but you see how your brain can't help but imagine it. You can't help but like it even more. You can't help but take away the point that story actually works. You have to get better at storytelling. And then finally, number four, we've already talked about it's style. It's how you deliver it in your own authentic way. We have to get out of trying to sound like a robot, sound like other people, or being boring on camera. Like you have to amp up your personality on camera in a true way for you. And if you don't have style, your message is gonna like totally get missed. So really, really long-winded way to answer your question of how do you get better on any kind of stage. Strategy, structure, story, and style. Everything that I teach and everything I work with my clients lands back into those four areas.
Four categories. Okay, so good. I love this. And I think that for many, they just flip the camera on and they start talking about whatever. And I get it. I've been there. I do that too sometimes, right? But going into it with a plan and looking at each of those four areas is dramatically going to improve how you're showing up and connecting with others. And let's talk about sales because everyone listening to this podcast ultimately is trying to grow their business. They're trying to get more sales. They're trying to hit the next level. They're trying to get that bonus. They're working to grow their income. So I know you said sales is one of many different objectives that you could have in that strategy portion, but any suggestions on just how you can naturally weave sales into speaking moments without that, fear of being pushy and awkward and salesy and gross and weird. How do we make sure that we're still selling if that is part of our strategy and our goals, but doing that in a really authentic way?
Yeah. Oh, I think first is just acknowledging we're always selling. We're always selling an idea. We're selling ourselves. We're always selling. So this idea that selling is a separate thing is just it's not a thing. Like we're always selling. So if anyone is listening to this, if you're feeling uncomfortable with the idea of selling, I'm really going to push and challenge you to ask yourself the question of how successful do you think you're going to be if you're resisting making sales? Like you got to do whatever mindset work, whatever revisiting work, however you're defining sales, you got to work on that. Otherwise, you are not going to be successful in your business. Like tough love, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
But let's actually talk about this piece right now. I hear a lot of people saying, I don't want to be schmucky. I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be overtly selling. And let me redefine what that means.
Mhm.
When you're feeling that ugh with sales, it's because you're doing sales wrong. It's because
Mhm.
you are presenting a solution or an offer to an audience that you don't know if they actually need or want your offer. And that's where you're going wrong. If you know your audience, if you know they want your offer and you know they need your offer, it's not pushy. It's just very generous. That's where people make that switch of saying selling is serving or selling is serving.
Mhm.
But then a lot of people get very confused to going, but what does that mean? It's simply that they're aware of it, they want it, they need it. Yes, invite them in. So the question is, how do we do that with our voices? How do we do that on video? How do we do that in our presentations? So a couple things. I knew this question was coming, so I dug out of my archive for your listeners.
Oh, good.
I have a guide. I'm going to tell you about it, but I actually have a free guide. It's one of my old lead magnets, but I took it off my website last year. But I go through and I teach you there are three specific anchor statements. I call them magnets that you
Mhm.
incorporate into your speaking. Whenever you
Okay.
do video, they're little phrases, they're little mini phrases you use. And there's three different types. There are CTA magnets. So little
Yeah.
phrases that you use to actually make the ask. When people think selling, they're actually talking about how do I actually pitch my offer? How do I actually phrase this in a way where I invite people in so it doesn't sound like, hey, and if you're interested, buy my thing. There are
Yeah.
specific phrases that you can use to pull people in so that transition is really natural. But then there's also two other kind of magnets you should be dropping. And those are credibility magnets and those are buy-in magnets. And I
Okay.
pulled it up because I knew you're probably going to ask me like an example
Mhm.
of these.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, like a buy in magnet, for
Uh-huh.
example, when I say buy in, it means that you're getting people bought into your idea, bought into the future. So, asking a question or even making a statement around imagine and then paint a picture of like the outcome, right? So, imagine that you're on a video and you actually know how to make that transition from whatever you were talking about into inviting them into your promotion that you're offering.
Yeah.
Boom, that's a buy in magnet. Using the
Love
word
that.
imagine. Using that, do you see how insert the thing that you're talking about would make a huge difference with insert problem or struggle? You're getting them to see themselves in their success. These
Mhm.
are buy in magnets. I teach there's five specifically ones that you can use.
Okay.
Another phrase that you can use are credibility magnets. This is where you're building trust and authority. So those could be things like, oh gosh, I did this twice already in this interview. I
Yeah.
credibility magnet dropped my client Melissa, who was in network marketing, who did a talk on a stage and talked about story. I also
Mhm.
credibility dropped my client I was just on a call with and talked
Yeah.
about his specific challenge and how what we were helping him be more successful by being more authentic to his strengths. So, credibility is where you can talk about your past experiences without saying, hi, my name is Heather Sager. I've spoken on 1,500 stages. You should listen to me because I know what I'm doing. That's awkward, right?
Great.
I let you do that
Great.
because you're the host. You're allowed to. You can let other people tout your praises, but
Yeah,
you
sure.
need to give your resume and your rap sheet. You should never feel like you have to convince people that you are good at what you do. You show
Yeah.
them through credibility magnets, like dropping examples and stories of your past clients or past work. So these are just
I
examples of
love
those.
that.
I can give you guys access to this whole thing. It's like a 14-page document of all these little
Oh my,
phrases that you could
what a
steal.
gift.
Seriously,
Yes.
one of my favorite downloads that people grab. So I would love to give that to your people.
I love that because I think, sometimes the words are hard.
Yeah, words are
Finding
totally hard.
words are hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really hard to find the words. And I like laugh about this sometimes that I do a lot of like, well, you could say this in a direct message to someone, or maybe in your social post, you could write something like that. I give a lot of examples of messaging because I think most people feel really uncomfortable with that, right?
Yeah.
And the way that you're weaving that into conversations in a real and authentic way can feel really challenging or feel different maybe than how you always talk, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where people kind of have that disconnect of like, oh, I need to say, like, I was talking to this person or I've worked with that person. That takes a little practice to make that a natural part of how you're communicating out with others. So I think any kind of cheat sheet, hint sheet, messaging, everyone loves that to have that, for the reference. I know when I started doing webinars, I had notes when I got to the pitch part, right? Because I was like, I can train on this stuff and talk about it all day, but then how do I transition into like, okay, now I got something good. I want you to buy it. And so I, for a long time, had post-it notes up on some of those key messages and words I was going to use to just kind of be a little crutch for me until I got a little bit better at it. And it became a little bit more natural for me. So yes, we will take all the cheat sheets, Heather.
I love it. I love that you brought that piece up, like around that webinar pitch piece. I
Yeah.
think what a lot of people think about is like when I work with my clients to help them practice,
Yeah.
most people start their practice from the very beginning and they just practice it all the way through. And then their beginning is so overly rehearsed. Those
Yeah.
first few minutes where you're building that connection and rapport, like you really want that to feel authentic.
Yeah.
What I really encourage my clients to practice with is think about the sticky points of your talk, the sticky points.
Mhm.
And I can tell you hands down, 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs, their sticky points is when they know their content. Their sticky points is how do I open the video and get to my point faster without rambling? And
Yeah.
sticky points is how am I going to land the frickin' plane? And
Yeah.
if you're pitching, right, that's part of it. So what
Right.
I really want you to think about is I don't need to have a script. I need to have
Mhm.
my core phrases that move me from the one point to the other. Transitions is where everybody falls apart. Transitions is where the rambles happen. Transitions is where you go off script and go off on a tangent and you're like, oh crap, where was it going here? Transitions is where the terrible body language comes in or the nerves comes in. Like
Yeah.
transitions is where the plane like totally crashes and burns. So if you can really start thinking about exactly what you did, saying, okay, how do I hone in on this? And I might need a script a little bit more until I feel more confident and done it so many times, right? It's uncomfortable, not because the copy is bad, it's uncomfortable because you've never done it before. Versus notice if you're really uncomfortable because you're using words that are from a bro marketer that you're like, this doesn't sound like me. That different, right?
Or
Change the
chat
words.
GPT.
But you're exactly right. So if you're feeling it, you're like, I feel really uncomfortable. Are you uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar or are you uncomfortable because it's unaligned? That's the
Yeah.
question you have to ask yourself. And it's unaligned, change the script. How would you
Mhm.
say it? But it's just uncomfortable because unfamiliar. Oh, that's exactly what you do. Put post-it notes on your computer or
Yeah.
practice that phrase over and over. That's where you refine those sticky parts so that you can get better because that's really where the magic happens.
I love that. I love that. And I think it's so important to call out those transitions too, because as someone that has spoken on stages before, it is always like, okay, well, I'm presenting on this and then I need to leap over to that. Like, how do we keep people with us? How do we
Yeah.
move them into that next piece? And I think that those are the parts that afterwards I'm like, oh, like that could have been more fluid, or
Yeah.
that could have felt more natural, or I could have connected this a little bit better with that. So I've actually never really thought about it in that way, that those are critical transition points during a talk. I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, we could talk all day. I was like, we're going to keep this to 20 minutes. We might be a little bit over that. That's okay because we have a lot to say, lots to talk about. But Heather, this has been so good. Just as we wrap up, any kind of like mic drop message you want to leave our audience with as they're thinking about finding their voice, refining their voice, showing up in an authentic and real way, and maybe building confidence in that process. And it doesn't have to be on a huge stage in front of thousands of people. It could be flipping the camera on and recording that reel, or doing that live video, or inviting people into a Zoom call. How do we do that better? What's your best tip as we're wrapping up?
Yeah. Okay. So I was really thinking about this. I'm like, where do we want to take this? And I think
Yeah.
what I was going to say is different than what I'm about to say. So, a couple years ago, I was working with a client who was really comfortable on stages, but like me, she was really struggling with the camera. She was overly nitpicky. I don't know if you've ever had this too, right? Where you can't record anything because you're so up in your head around like, why is my eyebrow weird? Why am I doing this? Like, why is my mouth moving weird? Why am I salivating so much? Like, just nitpick after nitpick after
Yeah.
nitpick. And what happened is it was so frustrating for her recording video. She then, even thinking about recording video, would talk herself out of it because it was just a frustrating process. And just
Mhm.
translating this to anyone listening, maybe the video thing isn't you, maybe it comes out in a different way. But if you've ever second guessed yourself after, where you're like ruminating in your head over and over and over, and you're just nitpicking and so self-critical, I need you
Yeah.
to hear me when I say this, okay? What happens is when it comes to nerves, have you ever heard this expression before? Nerves are the same physical brain thing as excitement. So just
Yes.
tell
Yeah.
yourself your excitement and it's the same. I call BS on that. Like I'm sure technically it's right, but like just telling me you're excited, that doesn't do anything for me. So
Yeah.
what I do when it comes to criticism of myself or nerves, I made this one shift and it's changed everything for me and my clients. And it's
Mhm.
this: pay attention to what you're focused on. And when you notice if you're nervous, if you're self criticizing, the front and center of all that attention is you. You are
Mhm.
putting yourself at the center. You're making it about you. You're worried what people will think about you. You're worried that you're going to look stupid. You're worried that you're going to mess up. You're so worried about yourself that you're missing the plot. And the plot is
Mhm.
the person that you're talking to. So if you
Mhm.
ever find yourself in a position where you're really getting self critical, you need to flip it and say, is this about me or about them? And
Mhm.
by asking some questions of going, who am I talking to today? What might they be self critical about? What might be rolling around their head that I wish I could reach in the camera and tell them that, hey, you're doing awesome. Like, hey, mama, you're really busy. Like, you're holding it together. Like, who cares that you didn't fill out the planner today? Like, you freaking put food on the table for your kids and got them on the bus.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
start thinking about the person that you're talking to. And what you're going to find is that mama bear in you is going to come alive and you're going to become the protector of that person that you're talking to. And what's going to happen is your whole physicality is going to change. You're going to get a little aggressive and you're going to be like, hell yeah, you need to listen because you're
Yeah.
trying to pull them up. And you'll notice that the focus goes away from you and all that self critical crap that you've been doing because now you're here because you're of service, because you need them to hear you, because you care about them and you're speaking to them and their challenges right now. So,
Mm.
what I want everyone to take away from this is anytime you start getting up in your own head and you start feeling badly about yourself or about the world, ask yourself the question of where am I at right now? Am I making it about me or am I actually thinking about the person that I'm trying to help? And just by asking a couple simple questions, you will completely change your energy and your focus.
Well, mic drop, Heather, because that was good. I love that. I love that so much. And I think we've all been there. Like, I literally sent a video to somebody yesterday that I recorded, and I said, here you go, it's done. I don't know why my eyebrow was doing that weird thing, but it's done.
For me, it's my left one. I'm like, I don't know. It's
I'm
got
like,
its whole
this one
personality, but
looked weird.
whatever. Like,
I literally said the same thing yesterday. But I think that's a great reframe, right? Like it's about the person you're talking to and how you can serve them and how you can help them. It's not about you and it's not about your eyebrow. Even if in your head you're like, oh, I don't know. But I think you're right. That becomes for a lot of people, like I can't even do the video. Like I can't even finish the 30 seconds that I need to put this together because I keep fixating on how I look or how I feel or all of those self-conscious things that come up. So I think that sums it up so beautifully. You packed a ton of knowledge into this today. I so appreciate you. Where can we find you? Where can we connect with you? Where can we learn about what you do? How do we work with you? Tell us all the things.
yeah. So if you're listening, you're building a personal brand and you want to get more articulate with your ideas, your message, maybe you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I tell stories like that today? How do I find them? Where do they go? All of this is available for you on my website. I have a ton of free content and an entire podcast where I dive into all of these things, including what we talked about, the whole like creative atrophy with ChatGPT, how to tell better stories, how to get better on camera, how to stop scripting, like any of those things are all available. So if you go to heathersager.com, you can find everything that you need. My podcast, which I'm just going to lay in here, I renamed it and I might be
Okay.
renaming it again. So I'll tell you right now, the name of it's called The Ramble Refinery. But if you just
Okay.
search Heather Sager on any podcast platform, you will see I have almost 300 episodes, a ton of guest interviews. If you really resonated with what I was saying today and you want more of that, go listen to some of my podcast episodes for sure. Like that's the best place to get more Heather in your life.
I love it. We all need more Heather in our life. Okay, we will link to that, whether the name changes or stays the same by the time this episode drops. So we'll link to it in the show notes so everyone can come and find you and listen in. Thank you, Heather. This was absolutely incredible. I so appreciate you taking time today, and I'm excited to see everyone building some confidence and speaking on all sorts of stages, from soccer fields to main stages and ballrooms. I think you have them covered. So thank you again for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks. This episode is sponsored by CintShare. CintShare is the #1 social media scheduler for direct sellers and loved by creators in any industry. It's truly your one-stop shop for all things social. Join hundreds of thousands of social sellers and entrepreneurs who turn to CintShare for free social media training and resources. Get started today with your free 30-day trial at moderndirectseller.com/CintShare.